All right, so get this. What if, instead of your teacher grading your next coding project, it was another AI? Like, what if you could just have one AI judge the work of other AI, especially the ones actually writing the code?
And the paper we're looking at today is tackling exactly that.
Agents as a judge. Evaluate agents with agents, right?
Yeah, it's the one. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it really gets at a pretty big change in how we think about AI development.
Okay, so before we go any further, can we talk about agentic systems? I keep seeing that term pop up, and I'm not totally sure I get it.
Yeah, so basically you can think of agentic systems like AI that operate a lot more like if a human was programming. They don't just like spit out a single answer. They make a whole series of decisions step by step to solve problems.
So it's more like having an AI project manager working for you instead of just a calculator.
Exactly. And this paper is looking specifically at agentic systems that are designed to write code. That leaves a big question.
Yeah.
How do you evaluate how well they're actually doing?
Because usually you'd have actual humans, reading through lines of code to find errors, make sure it meets the requirements.
Which is not only a huge time suck and expensive, it's also just really prone to, well, human error, right? I mean, we've all had that moment where we miss a question on a test, even though we knew the answer. Imagine that with something as complex as evaluating AI code.
Yeah, no thanks. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So this paper, they're looking at whether we can automate that whole judging process, but not just with any AI, right?
Right. They're trying to figure out if an AI that actually understands code, like the nuances of it, that can think like a programmer, can potentially do a better job than we can.
And that's what they're calling the agent as a judge model.
Yeah.
So like having one AI expert critique the work of another AI.
Precisely. And think about it, the potential cost and time savings are huge. But what's really interesting is what this could tell us about how AI learns and evolves in the future.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty here. The researchers created this data set they're calling DVI, right?
Yeah, so picture DevAI like it's a giant stack of coding challenges, 55 of them to be exact. And they're all based on real-world AI development tasks.
So things like building an app that can recognize objects and images or something.
Exactly. Or like predicting future trends based on some data you feed it, stuff like that.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So they had different code-generating AI try to tackle these challenges.
You got it. They had a few different systems going head-to-head, MetaGPT, GPT-Pilot, and OpenHands. Each of them was tasked with actually building out these AI applications just like a human programmer would.
That's wild. But okay, so now you have all this AI-generated code. How do you even start to judge it?
Well, you need some kind of benchmark, right? So they brought in the humans. They had 3 expert human judges go through all the AI-generated code to see how they stacked up against each other and us.
Because, of course, we humans are the be-all and end-all of judgment, right?
Well, funny you should say that. It turns out they found a pretty surprising amount of disagreement between the human judges, sometimes as much as like a 10 to 30% difference in how they assessed things.
Wait, so even expert humans don't always agree on what makes good code?
And that's a really important point, because even among experts, human judgment is inherently subjective, right? It's based on their own experiences, their preferences, maybe how much coffee they had that morning, who knows?
Okay, that makes sense. Our human brains are mysterious places. But so where does that leave the AI judges? If we can't agree, how can we expect them to do any better?
That was the real test. So the researchers wanted to see how well the AI judges both the large language model as a judge, the LLM, like what powers something like ChatGPT,
right,
and this new agent as a judge, how well both of those types aligned with what the majority of human experts thought.
Okay, Anne, drum roll, please.
The agent as a judge kind of stole the show. It consistently had what they called a higher alignment rate with the human consensus. So it agreed with the majority of the human judges way more often than the LLM as a judge did, and even more consistently than any individual human judge.
Whoa. So the AI that's thinking more like a programmer with that step-by-step approach was better at judging the work of other AI programmers.
It's pretty wild, right? And it wasn't just about being more accurate either. It's way more efficient. The agent as a judge was 97% cheaper and faster than using human judges. Talk about a productivity boost.
Okay, I got to know what kind of tasks were on this DevAI thing that were tripping up even the human experts.
They had a really wide range, honestly. But for example, task 13 was all about something called style transfer with perceptual loss in PyTorch. Basically, imagine being an AI and having to create a program that can, say, take a picture like the Mona Lisa.
And then redraw it in the style of a different artwork, like Van Gogh's Starry Night.
Exactly. That's style transfer in a nutshell. And it's crazy complex, even for experienced human programmers.
And there's just one example. What else was in this DevAI obstacle course?
Oh man, we're talking everything from object detection to like time series forecasting, the kind of things you would actually see on a professional AI developer's to-do list, you know. And these AI systems didn't just have to write the code. They had to like download the data, pre-process it, build the models, sometimes even generate visualizations.
So it wasn't just about making sure the code ran without errors. It was the whole process of building a functional AI application.
Exactly. It's a much more holistic way to look at AI code generation, and it's really where the agent as a judge really shines.
So is this agent as a judge about to put all the human programmers out of a job?
That's the question everyone wants to know, right?
I mean, you're telling me this AI can look at code and decide if it's good or not, faster and cheaper, and potentially better than humans? Makes you wonder what our role is in all of this.
Yeah, it's a big question for sure. But before we go too far down that road, let's circle back to those human judges for a sec. You mentioned they didn't always see eye to eye. What were they disagreeing about exactly?
Well, because evaluating code, I'm guessing it's not like grading a multiple choice test, right? It's not just about checking if something's right or wrong.
Exactly. You have to think about the intent behind the code, you know? Like,
Hmm.
what was the programmer going for? What design choices did they make? How well does it actually meet the specific needs of the task? Code can technically work, but still be, you know, poorly written,
Yeah.
inefficient.
So you could have two pieces of code that achieve the same outcome, but one is just more elegant, or maybe
Yeah.
uses less computing power.
Exactly. And that's where human judgment can get a little tricky because different programmers will have different ideas about what makes for good code, right? One programmer might be all about like keeping the code as concise as possible, and another might be more focused on making it really readable, even if it takes a few extra lines of code to do it.
And those two things aren't always the same, are they?
Not always. It's a balancing act for sure. And that's why it's so interesting that the agent as a judge, with its ability to really like analyze the code at such a granular level, it was actually more aligned with the majority opinion of those human experts.
It's like that one friend everybody has who always seems to know what everyone's thinking, even when nobody else can put it into words.
Huh. I like that analogy because the agent as a judge, it's not just looking for errors in the code, right? It's looking at the bigger picture, understanding the context, and then judging how effective the code is based on this whole like broader set of criteria.
Okay, so how do they even build this thing? Is there a secret AI recipe they used?
Well, they actually went with a pretty modular approach, designing 8 different components that all kind of work together to analyze and evaluate the code. It's
Mhm.
almost like they're assembling like a team of specialists, each with their own area of expertise.
Okay, so who are the all-stars on this AI judging panel?
So some of the most important ones are the graph module, the read module, and then the locate module. Now, before you think we're about to go full tech jargon on you, let me explain. The graph module, its whole thing is understanding the structure of the code, you know, how all the different files and functions relate to each other, almost like it's building a roadmap of the entire project.
So it's creating a visual representation of how the code is all organized.
Exactly. Then you've got the read module, which is like the code whisperer. It can understand not just what the code literally says, but what it actually does.
So it can decipher the programmer's true intentions hidden within the code.
You got it. And then last but not least, you've got the locate module, which is kind of like the detective of the group. It can quickly pinpoint the specific parts of the code that are relevant to a particular task or requirement.
Wow, they really thought of everything. But wait, you said they started with 8 components. What happened to the other 5? Did they get cut from the team?
Well, they did a bunch of testing and realized that some components, like the search module and the memory module, they weren't really doing much to improve the agent as a judge's performance at this stage.
So even in AI development, sometimes less is more.
Apparently so. Their thinking is that the tasks they were using in DevAI might not have been complex enough to really benefit from these more advanced components. Kind of like, you know, bringing in Gordon Ramsay to judge a pie eating contest.
Okay, I can see that. But the fact that they were already thinking about those more advanced capabilities is impressive. They're already thinking long-term here.
Oh, absolutely. They're already envisioning a future where AI judges could handle way more sophisticated evaluation tasks. And while that's super exciting, it also kind of makes you wonder.
What it means for all us humans.
Exactly. What happens when AI can not only do the work, but also judge the work, potentially better than we can?
It's a question a lot of people are probably asking themselves right now.
and one we'll definitely be digging into more in a minute. We'll talk about what this research might mean, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
We're back, and I don't know about you, but it's kind of freaking me out to think that we're even at a point where AI can judge AI. Like, this is some sci-fi stuff, man.
It definitely feels pretty futuristic, right? But at the end of the day, it's good to remember that AI is just a tool like any other. And like any tool, we can use it to do amazing things, or we can use it not so much.
Right, right. So let's try to stay optimistic here. What are some of the really cool things this agent as a judge thing could do? What's the best case scenario?
Well, the most obvious benefit is, sheer efficiency. Imagine being able to take like mountains of code, thousands, millions of lines of code, and evaluate it in like a fraction of the time it would take a human. That could be a total game changer for software development. Things would move way faster. We could find solutions quicker.
So we're talking about like life-saving software, groundbreaking technologies, all happening way faster than they do now.
Exactly. But it's not even just about speed. Because the agent as a judge can look at the code at such a detailed level, it could potentially spot things that even the most like seasoned human reviewer might miss.
Yeah.
So you're also talking about more reliable software.
Fewer bugs, fewer system crashes. Yeah, I am definitely on board with that.
And here's where things get really wild. Imagine if AI systems were not only writing code, but actually learning from each other and improving based on the feedback they get from this AI judging process. This kind of continuous feedback loop, constantly pushing AI to be better and better.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. AI teaching AI. That's wild. But where does that leave all the human programmers out there? Are they out of a job?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think some experts are convinced that a lot of what human programmers do now will eventually be automated by AI, but then you have other people saying, no, AI will become just another tool for human programmers, not a replacement.
So more like instead of trying to stop the robots from taking over, we need to learn how to work with them.
Exactly. It's like that saying, AI won't replace you. A person using AI will.
Ooh, I like that. So instead of being afraid of becoming obsolete, maybe we should be thinking about how we can level up our own skills to stay ahead of the game, focus more on like the creative stuff, the strategic stuff, the stuff that AI can't do.
You got it. And that's exactly why research like this is so important, because the more we understand about AI, what it's good at, what it's not good at, the better we can use it to shape a better future for everyone.
Absolutely. So for all our listeners out there who are ready to jump into the world of AI, judging AI, what's the one thing they should take away from today?
Stay curious, my friend. Stay informed. And stay engaged. The future of AI is being written right now, and these conversations, they matter. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, challenge assumptions, and really think critically about the role we want AI to play in our lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, this has been a wild ride into the world of AI judging AI. Be sure to check out the full paper, the links in the show notes. And until next time, keep exploring.